Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another episode. And on this episode, I'll be discussing my top 10 first time watches of 2024. So these are movies, not just movies from 2024, these are movies past and present, but just movies, first time watches for me last year. I will say I was inspired by this great topic by my good friend Ash from Popcorn and Horror. If you've not checked out his channel already, check it out because he's got an awesome channel discussing movies, the movies he enjoys, physical media, cracking channel. So I just want to say thank you as well to Ash for the great topic idea from his channel. So before I do get to the top 10, I also want to go through some honourable mentions. It was hard doing the top 10, I'll be honest with you, going through the list today. So I've got an honourable list of some movies that didn't quite get in the top 10, but I felt like they needed a bit of a mention on this video topic. So let's get to those mentions. So, honourable mentions. The first one I want to get to is the movie Heretic starring Hugh Grant. And it's like a psychological thriller movie. And I'm not a big horror guy in general, you know, if you're a regular viewer of this channel. But this movie was very well done. And I think because Hugh Grant is such a, we know him from the rom-coms over the 90s, early 2000s. It was very weird to see him in a villainous role, and he nailed it in this role. It's superb. There was one particular scene, if you just want to get a vibe of the movie, check out the Monopoly scene, because I think that scene was amazing. I love that scene. You're probably thinking the Monopoly scene. Check it out on YouTube. It is a great scene. But Heretic, a great movie. Another one, Army of Darkness. I watched the whole Evil Dead trilogy. Army of Darkness was by far my favourite one. Didn't quite get into my top 10, but still a brilliant movie, great comedy, horror. I thought it was great going into the medieval times. Really enjoyed that one. Another one, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. To me, I think with my top 10, it changes so much. And I was looking back at all the movies I watched in 2024, and initially I thought Frozen Empire would probably be in my top 10, and a few of these other ones as well. But I kind of looked at the other ones I've seen, I'm like, oh, maybe not. But it got such a bad rep from the reviews of Frozen Empire. I thought it was a really fun movie, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good, another Ghostbusters movie that I enjoyed. Not a big, hardcore Ghostbusters fan, but I did enjoy this movie. I thought it was really decent. And finally, the last honourable mention, another movie I watched at the cinema this year, Fall Guy. I thought it was a really fun movie, you know, fun action comedy, didn't take itself too seriously. Great score with the rock music soundtracks and the bit of Kiss. Great, yeah, just a fun movie overall, very entertaining. I'd highly recommend watching Fall Guy. I don't feel like it's probably, again, another one that I don't think it did remarkably well at the box office, but it was a decent movie I enjoyed. So yeah, they're the four honourable mentions. Now let's get to my top 10. So, my top 10 of first time movie watches in 2024. As I said at the beginning, these are movies from past and present. So, these are movies, it's not strictly 2024 movies, but let's go through them. I've tried to put them in as much as an order of my favourites being, so I'm going to go from 10 to number 1, and number 1 is obviously my favourite. But it was really hard to put this list together because some of them were really, hard to compare the different types of movies. But first of all, let's go. I'm going to run through these fairly quick. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but number 10, Yesterday, the 2019 Danny Boyle movie, and it is a movie about basically the concept of the movie. There's a big power cut in the world, big power outage, and then basically this main character who's this musician, this indie musician. He's a failed musician, if you like. Is set in Britain, and he has a bang on the head. He gets in a car accident in this outage, what is a worldwide outage, and then after that, loads of things are no longer in existence. So I think I can't remember things, but like for example, I think it's like Pepsi is no longer a thing. It's never existed in time. And one of the big things, obviously, Yesterday, it's a nod to the Beatles song Yesterday. The Beatles no longer exist. So this is a musical type film. I wouldn't say it's a musical per se, but there's a lot of musical numbers in this. But yeah, this guy then, no one remembers the Beatles but this one guy. So he decides to start using Beatles songs in his playlist, in his sort of like gigs and stuff like that. And then obviously with the Beatles songs being so great, he then becomes this like big pop star. And then it's a really interesting one because I've heard about this. It's a 2019 release, and it's one I didn't think I would like. Not to say I'm not a big with the Beatles. I think with the Beatles over time I've enjoyed them more and more as I get older. I enjoy more of the Beatles stuff going into the back catalogue a bit more. But I wouldn't say I'm a massive Beatles fan by any stretch of the imagination. But this was again not one. I remember seeing the trailer for it a few years ago. And I thought, oh, this looks really naff, if I'm being honest. And I give it a go. I thought I'd heard. I think someone mentioned it, said it's a decent movie. I watched it, and man, it was great. It's like I dare to say a bit science fictiony, but it's kind of like a bit of a science fiction element. But I wouldn't say it's a sci-fi movie. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a brilliant, well put together story, and a fascinating film and a really good concept as well. I like it when it's an interesting concept like that, and it was well worth watching and one of my favourite, definitely in the top 10 list, and that's why it's at number 10. Number 9, we go to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan, big fan of the original movies and the newer trilogies, even the Tim Burton one and the TV show. I like it all. I like this. I didn't love it, but I like this movie, and I couldn't not put it in the top 10 because I do like Planet of the Apes. So at number 9, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I thought for me, War for the Planet of the Apes was the third one in the last trilogy was fantastic. It was like a phenomenal movie. It was hard to top that movie. But I think, obviously now they're doing a new trilogy. It was a start trilogy. I think you've got to give it, put it into that perspective. It's the first movie in a new trilogy. I thought it really did things well. There's some stuff I maybe would have liked to see a bit more. Like it had a few nods to the original movies, and I felt like they were going to put a bit more in there at times, but they kind of didn't go that direction. But maybe they will for future movies a bit more. But yeah, I liked it. I liked it seeing it was obviously set years after War for the Planet of the Apes, and it's good to see what happened to human civilization and how obviously the apes have developed, and then you've got all the apes in these different factions in these different villages. I thought it was a fascinating movie. I think it was really well done, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this trilogy. I think it was directed by, was it Wes Ball? And he's the guy who did the Maze Runner trilogy, and I think he's involved in the Zelda movie as well, which coming out in a couple of years' time. But yeah, solid movie, and I'm looking forward to seeing more Planet of the Apes movies. I really enjoy Planet of the Apes. Number 8, we have A Man Called Otto, a 2022 release comedy drama starring Tom Hanks. This is a remake, I believe, of a Swedish movie. Again, I'd heard about this movie, and I do like, I'm a big fan of Tom Hanks. Who's not a big fan of Tom Hanks? He's great. But just one, I feel like for a lot of people, a lot of people missed out on. And I watched it on a streaming service, and I thought it was a brilliant movie. So basically, without spoiling the movie, it's a very emotional movie, comedy drama. Tom Hanks is a widower, and basically he's a very bit of a grumpy old man, you would say. But then you see his story develop, and you see kind of why he's a bit grumpy, and then you see him come out of his shell a bit more throughout the story. Basically, this new family move in next door, and then he starts helping them out, and that's where he comes out of his shell more, and it's a real. I put this in the category of a real life story, and I think that's why I tend to enjoy them sort of movies a lot more now, the real life stories, and I think because it really gets that connection to you, because you can believe it a lot more. Not to say I don't like science fiction and stuff and action movies, but I think sometimes I do enjoy these type of movies a lot more nowadays. But yeah, great movie, really. Honestly, this is I really cry movie, but this one was I was close to crying. You do get tearful in this one. It's a very emotional movie. I liken it to something like the emotional impact of something like a Forrest Gump at times. One of Tom Hanks' best in recent times, definitely. I think as well, what I've put in my notes here, it's got vibes of the animated movie Up at times, and I'm saying I was watching it, and then I typed it online, and I've seen like some discussions on like the likes of Reddit saying similar things. So I'm obviously not the only one who felt that way. Like the old man in Up, where he kind of comes out of his shell a bit. Very similar vibe, but also a very different story as well. But yeah, Man Called Otto, a great movie, and it's it's a shame it doesn't get talked about enough because it is a solid Tom Hanks movie in my opinion. And number 7, again, another real story here. We've got the movie Chef, 2014 road movie, comedy drama, starring Jon Favreau. He also directed the movie and he wrote the movie as well. And the concept of the story is Jon Favreau's like this celebrity chef. He owns this top restaurant, and something goes on in his restaurant, and basically an event which brings him all negative press attention, and he decides to just kind of up sticks and buy a food truck and then start this food truck business. And he goes around in this truck with his mate, he's like former like side chef, and his son, and they go on this journey of starting this business and selling all like these like Cuban sandwiches, and it is great. This is one movie that got me into Cuban sandwiches, first of all, which are amazing. I make my own vegetarian ones. They're superb. And it was just, again, a very real movie, which is what I like. A great family story. It's got a really good cast as well. You've got Sofia Vergara, who plays his ex-wife in this. Dustin Hoffman's in this. Scarlett Johansson, Robbie Downey Jr. I will say those three are kind of in smaller roles in this movie. But yeah, great cast, great story, great movie. One I'd heard about at the time, but I kind of just didn't end up watching it. And one I'm glad I watched. I think I watched it on Netflix this year, and it's a solid movie, really enjoyable. If you like them real life stories that are really grounded, this is one you will really enjoy, I'm sure. Now we go from a grounded movie to a over-the-top superhero movie. And number 6, we have Deadpool and Wolverine. 2024 release. It was, for me, everything this movie I expected it to be. I never had the expectation it was ever going to be bigger or better than Avengers Endgame, because that movie was... I don't think that'll ever be top, personally. I think that's like the top bar. I think it's going to be hard to equal that movie in emotional interaction with the audience, the story, the characters, everything. It was just on 10 out of 10, that movie. But I think this was on par with a Spider-Man No Way Home. Superb film. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, great in them roles, Deadpool and Wolverine. And I think more than anything, to see Hugh Jackman in the the cartoon, comic book accurate yellow suit for the first time was great after over 20 years. Phenomenal. I love that scene when he's putting on that mask and it's that fight scene in the street and you've got the Madonna Like a Prayer song playing. Absolutely amazing. That scene's epic, and he just looks amazing in the mask. I'm surprised they've not done it before, but it's been teased, I know, but I'm hoping we see more of this moving forward with the upcoming Avengers movies. I'm sure Hugh Jackman will be in that with the yellow suit as well. Great movie. Like I said, everything I expected it to be. I wasn't disappointed watching that movie. Another one, number 5, we're going to Maze Runner: The Death Cure. Now, this is the third movie in the Maze Runner trilogy, and this was directed by the guy Wes Ball, I believe, who directed the latest Planet of the Apes movie. And I'd watched the first Maze Runner a couple of years ago, really enjoyed it. So it's like a dystopian future science fiction movie, fantasy movie. These young kids who are trapped in this maze, they've got to escape. The third one, in this dystopian world, the world's loads of things going on with the world, and basically I'd put it in a bracket of like, if you enjoy stuff like Hunger Games, you'd enjoy this sort of movie. But the first movie I watched years ago, really enjoyed it. Never got around to watching the second and the third one. And I watched the second one, really enjoyed it. I watched the first one again this year, watched the second one, and I kind of did it in a couple of days. Watched the third one, and the third one, I think it's so hard to do the third movie in a trilogy, to finish off a movie trilogy so really and do a solid job. But The Death Cure, honestly, was a perfect end to a fantastic trilogy. I think it had a great conclusion. It had a lot of emotion for a dystopian science fiction movie. It had a lot of emotion there. It was right up my alley. I highly would recommend this trilogy. I think it's fantastic. One, I would... Honestly, I rank my movies out of 3 stars. Every movie I watch, I do as 3 thumbs up in my phone. And it's rare that I get 3 thumbs up movies. This was definitely one of them. I think it was great. I think you can enjoy it on its own, but I think if you're watching it part of the trilogy, it's even better. It's a really solid film. At number 4, we have another Netflix release. I believe it was released in 2024, this movie, but it had a Venice Movie Festival release 2023, but it was worldwide release in 2024, and that was the movie Hitman. We got Glenn Powell in this movie, who is kind of this, he's in a lot of movies now, in the recent Twisters reboot as well. But it's like a dark comedy movie, I would say. Glenn Powell he's this professor, and at part-time he works for the police department, doing all like the tech guy stuff when they're doing undercover jobs. And then he gets pulled in to be an undercover operative on one of the missions. So basically, they are trying to they go as murder for hire. They go after murder for hire people, basically. So they go in and pretend they're like a hitman. And so these people who are going to hire them, and then they get them done for trying to hire someone to kill the ex-wife or the husband or something like that. And then Glenn Powell does it. He does a great job, and then they start recruiting him for every mission. Then, so he goes from this tech guy to this sort of like this undercover agent guy, and he wears all these different costumes, which is really fun. You see all these different characters he plays, and again, this is where the comedy comes in. But then he goes from being like this professor who's very quiet, very introverted, kind of doesn't have much going on in his life, to taking on these different alter egos. And there's one particular alter ego he takes on, and he kind of goes down this route of then getting involved in some crimes. And it's an interesting story, and I believe it's partially true. I don't know how much of it's true. I think it's obviously a lot of it is made up in the story for sure, but I know it's based on this true guy called Gary Johnson. It's like his memoirs, somewhat based on it, loosely based. But a fun movie. I've watched it a few times in 2024. Really enjoyed it. I think it's just a very easy watching movie, a fun watch. And Glenn Powell I feel like he's going to be like the next Tom Cruise. This guy, I feel like he could take over. He was in Top Gun as well. He was in Top Gun Maverick. He could definitely take over as the main guy in the Tom Cruise movie, in the Mission Impossible movies for me. I think he's a really talented guy from the movies I've watched him so far. Hitman, really enjoyable. Next up, we have number 3, we have the Ford versus Ferrari movie. I believe it was called Le Mans 66 in some places. 2019 release, James Mangold directed, starring Christian Bale and Matt Damon. Based on a true story. Basically, it's on the Le Mans 1966 race, a Le Mans race. Le Mans race is a 24-hour race. Basically, in the story, Ferrari dominated this race for years, and Ford decided they want to, start a racing car. They want to get involved in the Le Mans race. So Matt Damon I think he's I watched this earlier on last year, so I'm trying to retrace it in my mind. I think he's a driver, and he recruits Christian Bale's character, who's this British guy who's a bit eccentric, and he kind of says what he thinks without really thinking about the implications. But it's a great story. The movie, what I will say in this, brilliant story, great acting. The car scenes felt like you were in the car at times. Like you were part in the motion of being in the car in the race scenes. Phenomenal, really well done. A superb movie. I really want, again, a 3 thumbs up, full-on superb film for me, 10 out of 10. I think it was a spectacular movie. Again, I don't know how well this done at the box office, but great film. James Mangold, he's a director. I really do enjoy his stuff. He's done the Logan movie. He's done quite a few movies over the years that I've enjoyed. James Mangold, great director. This is a solid watch. Absolutely solid watch. If you've not seen it, I would say this is, if you like, I don't think you have to particularly like motor racing to enjoy this one as well, because it's such a good story. I'm not a big motor racing fan, but I really enjoy this movie. I didn't know anything about the story. Really enjoyed it. Didn't know about anything about the guys involved, but a cracking film to watch, definitely. At number 2, we have a movie recommended by my good friend Matt. And this movie is Training Day, 2001 release. I feel ashamed I've never watched Training Day until last year, but great movie. Denzel Washington starring, and Ethan Hawke as well. They star as 2 cops in the narcotics task force in LAPD, and Denzel is his character is the leading operative, and then he takes on this new guy Ethan Hawke's first day on the job in the narcotics squad, and the movie is set over a 24-hour period in LA, and you think, without spoiling the movie, it shows what really, what probably does happen a lot in LAPD in like these narcotic squads sometimes. Not to say every cop's like this, but I imagine over the years there has probably been like cops like this who are kind of, I would say, without spoiling the movie, there's a lot of blurred lines between good and evil and who to trust, and I don't want to say any more without spoiling it if you've never seen Training Day. It's a great movie though. What else I will say, this movie, I felt like this, if they were ever going to do a movie set in the Grand Theft Auto universe, this would be it. I think the setting of it just felt like it was a movie set in Grand Theft Auto. It was a cracking movie. Great. Honestly, it's by far, for me, one of Denzel's best movies. I think it was fantastic. I loved it. I think the acting in it was really great, really gritty. It's just like, and just seeing, I like that over the 24-hour period, and just like this new cop. I think as the audience, you're going on the journey of Ethan Hawke's character, who's this new guy going on the job in the narcotics squad, and you're placed with Denzel on the first day, and you're like, everything's gonna go really great, and then 24 hours later, you're like, oh my god. Great movie, Training Day, well worth checking out. And finally, number one, I am going to say this is a movie. Number one is Hacksaw Ridge. Mel Gibson directed movie starring Andrew Garfield as the character, as Desmond Doss. True story. I think it's is it World? Which one was it? I've got the DVD here, so it was World War II. Basically, I watched this on streaming, and then I got the DVD of this, paid it over about £1, I think. Great movie, Hacksaw Ridge. Story of it, it's basically this guy, Desmond Doss, he's a very religious guy. He wants to join the service, but he doesn't want to bear arms. He doesn't want to handle a weapon. And there's a big thing, true story, he doesn't want to, they don't want him to send into combat without having a weapon. He ends up going, and then he basically, I don't think this is spoiling it so much, but he saves a lot of lives during this story, and it's a remarkable story the way he's saving lives in such a tragic event of war. This movie, and the realism to this movie really got me at times. I heard about this in the movie community a few times actually. This film, and it's a 2016 release, and it is just so the war scenes are just incredibly well done. You feel the tension when it's in them scenes, really like hard to watch at times as well. But such a well-made movie, a great movie. I mean, I don't know how well this movie did at the box office, but it is fantastic. It is a fantastic film, and I feel like, obviously I've just got into Blu-ray and 4K this year. I feel like this is one I potentially would get an upgrade to 4K, because I think it's that deserving. It's a solid movie. One of my favourite war movies of all time. This is up there now, with something like, with Saving Private Ryan, Dirty Dozen. Oh God, I'm gonna forget some, but great war. If you like war movies, I think it is going to be right up your street. If you like some of them classics, fantastic film. But yeah, they are my top 10 movie watches, first-time movie watches of 2024. If you enjoyed this episode today, ladies and gents, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel as well, and leave me your thoughts on these first-time watches of 2024. Did you watch some of these this year, or maybe you've still not seen and you're interested in watching some of them? Let me know some of your favourite movie watches of 2024, first-time watches as well, movies past and present. Tell me your experiences, whether it's cinema, physical media, you watch them on TV. Let me know all your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.